Anyways, we're on page 874 because this week's parasha begins in last week's parasha. And because people speak about this parasha so incorrectly, I felt that it was my responsibility to teach this parasha correctly. We talk about zealots. And those zealots generally have a negative connotation to them. It's a stigma. These zealots use the verses in the Torah to condone all kinds of actions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself would not allow us to do. And so I want to read. Let's read together. Learn to the psukim. But you don't read them like a fool. You read them like someone with a brain. Hashem gave us a brain. The reason He gave us a brain is to understand things, to ask the right questions, to reach the right answers that will give you the proper perspective of a story. This week, I told my wife that I've become very frustrated arguing with people. I've been arguing with a lot of people recently. Like good things, Torah things. But I reach a certain point where people, they're not truthful people. And so they'll use sources, and they're right. That's what the source says. But it's not what it means. And how do you prove to someone what it means? You have to deal with a person who has a heart and a mind and a soul that believes in Hashem. If you don't believe in Hashem, if you don't have kavod for Talmidei Chachamim, respect for Torah scholars, then you'll use anything that you can twist around. I mean, when I come to teach Torah, you think I can't find... Our rabbis tell us that there are 150 ways that a Torah scholar could allow someone to eat a pig according to the Torah. Kan derachim, 150 ways l'taher et hasheretz, to make permissible a sheretz, an impure insect. That's what the Gemara is trying to tell you, that with your logic, you can reach anywhere you want. Someone who's very trained, well trained with logic, can reach anywhere they go. So what stops a person from using the Torah to make the wrong decisions? The only thing that stops a person is their Yirat Shamayim. Where is Hashem in this picture? And when you have people who they deal with Torah, I asked our parents once, what is the problem with this generation? You want to know what his problem was? It's funny, it's not what you would think. He said it's the first generation where you have Torah scholars who have no fear of heaven. That's what it is. It's an incredible thing. So it used to be somebody who was a Torah scholar, it was a tzaddik. You could assume about him that he was a righteous person. So much so that in Rav Peretz's book, wherever he mentions that a person should go get advice from a Torah scholar, he adds in a Torah scholar who is a fearer of heaven. He said, why do I have to write such a superfluous sentence? Just because today you have all kinds of people that to them Torah is just a thing. They play with, they manipulate, it's like Play-Doh for them. And a lot of ego, and a lack of hachna'ah. I have told you this before. I'm not afraid to tell you this, I'm on the camera. Islam speaks about submission to Hashem. We as Jews, because we live in America, and because we speak so much like Westerners and so much like democratic people, we're afraid to talk about kniyah. It's a Jewish concept. What do you think? The Muslims are something intelligent, you think? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told, Rabbeinu Avraham ben Aramam says, everything good you find by the Muslims, they took from us. Don't think that they invented something. They took it from us. They're not the best plagiarists in history. When they talk about submission to Hashem, God forbid that what they understand submission to Hashem is a terrible thing. Submission, not everything in the world that you decide you want, Hashem has to let you do. Not everything in the world that you want to think or say or speak or eat Hashem has to agree with. Not every lifestyle in the world you want to condone, Hashem has to agree with. Sometimes we have to say, Hashem created the world. Hashem created me. I'm having difficulty. I'm challenged by something. Okay, at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. There is truth in this, to submit to Hashem. And we as Jews living in the West have for a long time stopped speaking about submitting to Hashem. It's a lot about making Hashem submit to us. There was once a rabbi who remarked that's probably why the Jews went into the shmata business, into the garment industry. Because they wanted to become experts on how to cut and tailor and snip Hashem exactly to the way that they wanted him to be. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. We have to know, when we read the Torah, we don't have a choice but to read it through HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah, not through the way we think we want to read it. So let's read together. Vayar Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, saw. What did he see? I'll take it up a little bit farther. Vayshev Israel Bashitim, go up to 874, where it says 25. Chafei. Vayshev Israel Bashitim, Israel settled in Shittim, Vayachel ha'am liznot el benot Moab. The people began to have improper relations with the daughters of Moab. You have to see how disgusting the people of Moab are. That some stranger that travels through your town, that's already who they're sending their daughters with. It's a people that is disgusting in its root. Vatikrena la'am lizivchei Elohen, and these ladies were missionaries. They would get these men to worship their gods. V'yochal ha'am, the people ate. V'yishtachavu le'Elohen, and they worship their gods. You know, Elohehen is written with a nun. A nun. Instead of Elohehem. The reason is, Elohehem is the word the Torah would normally use, is masculine. This is their God, meaning their feminine, the female's God. These ladies of Moab were so devout that they would seduce the men, says Rashi, into worshipping their idols. From here we have to learn what I mentioned to you on Shavuot about conversion. You cannot assume that a guy who's dating or married to a non-Jewish woman is going to raise his kids half Jewish. It's very often that women are very passionate about their religion, and they hold the key to their husband's heart, and they're able to drag him over to whichever religion they're a part of. As the Rambam says, the words Rambam says, Yilech hachevel achar hadli. The rope will always follow the bucket. And as you know, in a marriage, very often a woman is much stronger than a man, and is able to get the man to do all kinds of things he wouldn't have done previously. It's a stereotype. It's not always true. But here, the Torah is pointing out their God. I mean, the women were devout followers of their God. Okay, I'm skipping a few lines. Vayomer Moshe el Shoftei Israel. Moshe tells the judges of Israel, Hirgu ish anashav hanitzmadim leval peor. Every person should kill the man in their tribe, in their portion, who was involved with Baal Peor, this idol of Baal Peor. V'neish mibnei Israel ba. There was one man from the Jewish people who came. Vayekrev elecha et Midyanit le'enei Moshe, and he brought close the Midianite woman next to his, in front of his people, in front of Moshe. Ule'enei kol adat bnei Israel, in front of all of the Jewish people, meaning he was not embarrassed at all. He was in public, he was trying to make a statement, he was being provocative. From here you can see that it's a difference between a person who does a chet privately, a person who does something wrong. They're struggling in their life. They're struggling. It's a private struggle that they have. You cannot judge a person about their private struggles. If a person is ashamed enough to hide something that they're struggling with, you have to, it doesn't mean that they're okay, but you have to give them the respect of this person knows it's wrong, and that's why they're hiding it. It's a difference between that and the person who says, I don't care. Why do I care? I'm going to show the whole world. It's two different mentalities, two different approaches. Also, it happens on other avirot. The person, there are people who they don't keep Shabbat. They come to the Beit Knesset, and they're, they keep their cell phone in their car. They walk from a block over there. And then you have the person who, with blaring music, rolls up at the valet parking to the synagogue and comes in, their cell phone's on their waist and the rings joined. Two different people. And that person, I'm not judging him either, because he probably doesn't even know it's wrong. You live in a world today where that guy probably has no idea you can't do that on Shabbat. Don't understand for me to judge such a person. But our rabbis always saw that a person who's a choteh b'tzinah, someone who does something wrong privately, is very different than a person who does something wrong publicly. I shared this story with you before. Rabbi Tanner, who was my Rebbe in Baltimore, and when he was in Lakewood, the Lakewood Yeshiva. Now, back in the day, very few people were going to yeshivot in the first place. So yeshiva was like survival mode. People were not really going to yeshivot back in the day. I mean, the Rosh Yeshivas who came over from Europe to America to found yeshivot, they pretty much told them, it's a lost cause. In this country, there won't be yeshivot. There won't be any printing of Jewish books in this country. You guys are crazy.
What did they say?
And that's what the Jews thought. That's what they felt. The feeling was
around the turn of
30s,
1930s?
30s, 40s. This was the generation here in America. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Other non-denominational Jewish movements started lifting. I don't say non-denominational. Other denominational Jewish movements started lifting their heads and then creating all kinds of new Judaism. That was a different fight. But the original fight was, this is a new country. There's no room for what you did back then here. And most rabbis that came over, they came over fighting the whole world. Because the whole world told him that just give it a few years, your kids, your grandkids, none of them are going to be Jewish. This is a melting pot. This is America. This is the land of good, the land of gold, but don't hold on to your old-fashioned Judaism. So Rabbi Aaron Cutler built a yeshiva on Lakewood in this time. I don't know what he would say about Lakewood today, but he built a yeshiva, and his whole point was to build a stronghold of Jewish learning. He found in New Jersey. How he ended up from Slobodka to New Jersey, and that's an interesting story. But he was there, and he founded a yeshiva, and Rabbi Teller went to his yeshiva, and was a very close student of his. And once, in one of the dorm rooms, they found a boy that had a whole stash of inappropriate magazines. And very inappropriate magazines.
So hard to find in those days.
And they brought the stack to the Rosh Yeshiva's office. This boy is hiding it under his mattress. We should throw him out because this guy's disgusting. Throw him out of the yeshiva. And Rabbi Aaron Cutler told him, not only am I not going to throw him out of the yeshiva, you're going to take that stack of magazines, you're going to put them back and never tell him that you saw them. What are you crazy? The Rosh Yeshiva? You're going to keep this guy in the yeshiva and we're supposed to give him back his magazines? He said, the Rosh Yeshiva, when you see this man, how he prays, he cries when he prays. He's struggling with something. He's not influencing anybody else for the bad. He has a personal struggle with Hashem. So long as he's struggling, I am keeping him here. The moment he's not struggling, he's happy about where he is, that's the moment I send him out. He said, but so long as he's struggling, we don't throw a boy out of yeshiva. That takes wisdom. And that's real zealotry. A person who's, I'm a zealot because if I would throw him out of yeshiva, where do you think he's going to go? Down in the dumps. This man said he's not affecting anybody else, and he's struggling. And I have to, there are different people. Not everyone who does the same thing is the same. So here you find a man, he's not struggling. Not only is he not struggling, he's not ashamed. Not only is he not ashamed, he's going in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, in front of all the Jewish people. And they're crying, watching the scene that's happening. Vayal Pinchas, and Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, he sees them, Vayakom mitoch ha'edah, and he jumps up from inside of this the assembly. Vayikach romach biyado, and he takes a spear in his hands. Vayavo achar ish Yisrael el hakuba, vayidkor et shnehem et ish Yisrael vet haisha el kovata, and he throws a spear through both of their private parts. V'te'atzer ha'magefa al bnei Yisrael, and this plague that ended in the Jewish people. V'yu ha'metim b'magefa arba'a v'esrim alef. And the amount of people who died in this plague that began when the Jewish people started going with the ladies of Moab, this ended in the casualty of 24,000 people. So there's a sikha, a Hasidic discourse from the Lubavitcher Rebbe Alav Shalom, in which he discusses this number 24,000. Where else do you find this number 24,000 dying in a plague?
Rabbi Akiva.
Students of Rabbi Akiva. It's also not the only place. In France, they burned 24 cartloads of the Jewish Talmud. If you find in the Gemara, you'll find 24 train cars that were destroyed with all kinds of, not train cars, wagons that were destroyed with something. This number 24,000, it has in Kabbalistic literature different meanings. I'm not discussing it here, but this is an interesting number, just that it pops up here, just for further discussion. Let's turn the page and make it to this week's parasha. So what do we know? Pinchas kills 2 people and the plague ends. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. This really should have been either this paragraph should have been in last week's parasha, or last week's paragraph should have started off this week's parasha. Hashem speaks to Moshe saying, and I'm gonna, sorry that I'm interrupting. It's even more important to know that we never end off in a bad note. I mean, it's a rule. You never end off a dosha, and they died. What kind of ways that leave off people? You always end off with some kind of good news, some kind of nice verse. Harav Peretz, when he teaches the laws of Tisha B'Av, he always ends off with a nice teaching about Yerushalayim, about the Beit HaMikdash, because you can't leave people hanging with bad news. So the fact that Torah ends last week must mean that really is good news that is coming.
Well, it says the plague ended.
You're right. So that's kind of good news. It's like they stopped dying.
Yeah.
But it's smack in the middle of a story that this parasha ends. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Hashem speaks to Moshe saying, Pinchas, notice the yod is small, not for my kind of class. Ben Elazar, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, Ben Aaron HaKohen, the son of Aaron HaKohen. And again, when you see Jewish lineage, it's always one generation. Yehoshua ben Nun. Yeshua is always the son of Nun. Always you find one person. Yechezkel ben Buzi. Ezekiel, the son of Buzi. You never find 3 generations. Whenever you find 3 generations come to tell you something, which I'll tell you in a minute. Heshiv et chamati me'al b'nei Yisrael. He took away my anger from the Jewish people. B'kano et kinati b'tocham. When he zealously avenged my jealousy. I hate to use such words about Hashem. B'tocham, inside of the Jewish people. V'lo chiliti et b'nei Yisrael b'kinati. And I did not wipe out the Jewish people in my anger. Lachen emor, therefore tell him, Hineni noten lo et beriti shalom. I am giving him my covenant of peace. And Barry, can you bring me the tikkun from the Bina?
It says,
I remember correctly. There's an interesting thing here. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see that.
It's called Tikkun Korim. It's all the little corrections.
This, Raul and I were learning from this earlier this week. In the Torah, there are no vowels. So you have a book where you have one side with vowels and one side without vowels. That way you could practice reading for the Torah. Yeah. Should I hold it up again, Barry?
That's okay.
Okay. Hello.
as a
Kind of fresh off the beach here.
Nice.
Yeah, let's move on over from
No,
here.
thank you.
Okay, I'll think about it on Shabbat what I want to say. In any case, you see some interesting letters happening in this parasha. So Hashem gives him a brit of shalom, a covenant of peace. He kills 2 people. He stops a plague of 24,000 people. It's nice that he's a zealot, but it's a funny thing afterwards to give him a brit shalom, a covenant of peace. Peaceful, he's not. Courageous, he was. Brave, he was. Upholding the Torah, he was. Shalom, peace is not like it's not the initial reaction you think of the guy who stabbed the 2 people who were doing improper things in front of everybody. Our rabbis tell us that the reason why Pinchas, lineage, is given 3 generations back, Pinchas is the son of who? Elazar. Who is Elazar? The son of Aharon. Who is Aharon?
The brother of
He's the
Moshe.
brother Moshe. He's the Kohen Gadol.
He's the lover of peace.
Ohev Shalom. Rodef Shalom. He's a lover of peace, pursuer of peace. Ohev et Aberiot. He loves people. And the Karvan Torah, he brings them close to the Torah. That's what the Mishnah tells us. If Pinchas just came as some zealot, some lone zealot, pops out of the crowd, kills 2 people, the Torah would not have looked at him the same way. It's not your place to be a zealot. Halakha says that if he would have gone to Beit Din and asked, should I kill them? No. You're not a Beit Din. You are not a... You know, this happens in Israel sometimes. You have these youth that make all kinds of tag mechir, all kinds of price tag attacks on Arab mosques or Arab villages, or they'll burn down Arab trees. Or where does it come from? Their whole life they're being shot at by Arabs, they have rocks thrown at them by Arabs, their sisters are being killed by Arabs, they'll come with their parents are being killed. The tension in the street in these places in Israel is very much, those are my enemies. And so these people, in a very misguided fashion, go about and endanger other people's lives by trying to take back some kind of revenge. And their whole justification, well, the army also mows down houses, the army also moves people out of villages. But that's the difference. The army in Israel has the legal right. They are the representatives of Am Yisrael when it comes to destroy a house of a terrorist, when it comes to take a terrorist into prison, when it comes to... Not every person can just take the law into their own hands, and the way of the world will look like that. And so sometimes the system isn't perfect, sometimes the army doesn't do enough, sometimes the government doesn't care enough. That's a problem. That's why you have bodies in the government which you lobby and you try to change laws. But if every citizen took the law into his own hands, it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. There's no judge, there's no jury, there's no trial, there's no... Just every person with a gun. And in general, lynch mobs are such a dangerous thing that exists in the world. And you see the world today, they hype and people, and you find that not just in this country, in Israel too, people who get caught with crimes, they're already judged and persecuted and incriminated by the press and by the media before they even get a chance to stand in front of a court. And it's not the way that this works. It's a dangerous thing. Pinchas is not a zealot. The Torah is trying to tell you, don't think that this person in his nature is the kind of guy who jumps out of crowds and kills people. His nature is one of peace. He was defying his nature. Sometimes when I would walk with our parents, you'd have these guys rallying in the streets of Jerusalem, burning garbage cans, I don't know, lighting Israeli flags on fire. Jewish guys, you know, the crazy people that float around. And our parents always would like run with me into an alley. I said, "Everybody, so." I said, "Did you see that kid? He just uprooted the light post out of the ground." I said, "You know what he could do to me? I'm such an old man. He could break me in half. I don't know what he could do to me." These people, though, our parents, they're not zealots for Hashem. They riot about Shabbat being broken. They don't care about Shabbat. They are zealots. If they would have been Muslims some time ago, they would be jihadists. And if they would be Christians in the Inquisition, they would be inquisitors. If they would be Cossacks, they would be Cossacks. They'd be crusaders. They're not people who are motivated by true zealotry. They're people who are motivated because they're crazy people. These are the kind of people that should sit down and take yoga classes. These are the they have to meditate a little bit and go to anger management courses. And these are not the kind of people that should be taking zealotry into their own hands. Pinchas is not from that family. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to tell us. That's the reason we treat him differently.
It's not coming, in his case, it's coming from the Shama, from spirit. It's not coming from emotions and reactivity.
Very good. In Kabbalistic terms, it's not coming from his animalistic side. It's his soul that's coming out of him. Maybe in a gruesome way, but sometimes justice happens in a... You know, there was the man who executed Adolf Eichmann, Yimach Shmo V'zichro. Was a Yemenite Jew. And his identity just recently, about 5 years ago, was released. They had like a gag order and 40 years on his name because they were afraid about what happened to him. And it was 3 executioners that were, and none of them wanted to kill him. It's another problem with Jews. We have a certain misplaced mercy. We're afraid sometimes. You know that in the concentration camps, there was one place I was when I was in Poland. There was an uprising, and the Jews paid the Russian prisoners of war with their food rations. That when they make an uprising, the Russians should kill the Nazis because they don't want to kill people. In that place, of course, we would kill a Nazi. But somehow we have in our nature this compassion, and sometimes it comes out in the wrong places. It doesn't always come out in the right places. So what happens here? Was I telling you about?
About him being a zealot.
Oh, about him. So his whole life, 40 years, he's been in depression because he feels like he's a murderer. He goes to synagogue, he feels like he's a murderer. He prays, he feels like he's a murderer. Until after 40 years, Chacham Ovadia read an article in the newspaper and invited him to his house. And Rav Ovadia Yosef gave him and said, "You know, you're not a murderer." He said, "You know how many people this man murdered? Do you know what kind of criminal this person was? You were a messenger of Hashem to execute this person." And he said it took him 40 years to get a certain peace of mind that because he wasn't a murderer. If you have an executioner who's also the kind of guy who likes to murder people, he shouldn't be an executioner. Justice has to come out, but justice can come from a person who inside is sick, who inside is corrupt. Everybody has different places to be.
Which is why when they would normally give them malkot, they would give the lashes, really the person they would do 40, but they never gave 40, they always gave 39.
Right.
Because you're not giving 40. You're giving 40, so that's already problematic because it's not necessarily the justice that you're bringing as much as the need to lash somebody else.
Very interesting. That's
Yeah.
Let's read into this a little bit.
This shoe.
On page 876. Pinchas, the son of Lazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. Hishivet chamatim al bnei Israel. He takes away my anger from the Jewish people.
Okay.
Bekanot kinati betocham, while he's being zealous among them.
Okay.
You should know, by the way, this kanot kinati betocham. Rav Peretz points out the reason it says betocham, inside of the Jewish people, was because a zealot who comes from above, who looks down at people, is not a true zealot. If you don't care about the people you are being zealous towards, you're just a person with an ego problem. You think you're better, you think your lifestyle's better, you think you know the way, you think they're all wrong. Those people, they're wagging their finger at rabbis that speak. What are you wagging your finger? These people are grown adults. Are you wagging their finger at them? Are they your dog? You bark at them, and you're also a dog. Some people, they come from a place which is unheard of. A little bit of anava, a little bit, I'm part of you. When the rabbi tells according to halakha, when you give musal to people, you have to include yourself inside of the musal. I'm speaking to myself also. We all struggle with this problem. I want to speak about it, but not because I've solved all my problems and you didn't. because I struggle, and I want to share with you some of my experience about how to struggle with this together. A person who comes from above is always wrong. Pinchas, he came from inside of the Jewish people. He came as one of them. He came as the brother of this man who was doing an Avera. Not really a brother, not a genetic brother. Don't understand Chumash. And then it says, "V'lo chiliti et bnei Yisrael b'kinatin." I did not wipe out the Jewish people in my anger. So you have two interesting. The Or Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, who was your tzad with last week, asked an interesting question. So you seem to have two reasons why Pinchas was zealous. He was zealous. Hashem says he was zealous. But before he tells you he was zealous in order to remove my anger from the Jewish people. And then, why was he zealous? In order so that I shouldn't wipe out the Jewish people. Again, two motivators that he has. To make Hashem calm, so to speak, and so the Jewish people should be protected. Why didn't it say he was zealous, and he resulted in making Hashem not angry, and saving the Jewish people?
Because it was calculated. Meaning these weren't just results.
Very good. This was his motivation. I want to read to you from a Midrash. Before I read from Midrash. In general, when a person is a Kana'i, he's a Kana'i, he's a zealot, he has to know, I have to solve two problems. I can't just make Hashem happy. You don't get off by putting the Jewish people down all the time. It doesn't make you such a holy person. And also, those people who are zealots for the Jewish people, meaning they're always trying to make the Jewish people look good. You can't forget about Hashem either. In the terms of Chazal, I'll read to you a sentence from the Mechilta. Shlosha nevi'im hem. There were three prophets. Echad, one of them. Who is one of them? Yirmiyahu, the prophet. Tava kvod ha'av, uchvod haben. He demanded both the honor of Hashem and the honor of the Jewish people. Echad, one of them. Who is this one? This one is Eliyahu Navi. Tava kvod ha'av velo kvod haben. He demanded the honor of the father and not the honor of the son. Vechad, and the last one, this is Yonah the prophet. Tava kvod haben velo kvod ha'av. He demanded the child's honor and not Hashem. I'll explain. Yirmiyahu the prophet, when he came to solve the problem of the Jewish people, he took care of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and protected the Jewish people. And because of this, immediately afterwards, Hashem appears to him again in a prophecy. Hashem says, that's right, you want to be a prophet? You can't always hate on the Jewish people, and you can't always shove me in the dirt. There has to be an equal balance between making HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy and protecting the Jewish people. You're also. They're my children, but both the children and the parents have to get along. Eliyahu Navi, he came to complain about the Jewish people. Remember specifically he complained about? Brit Milah.
Yeah.
And that's why he, according to Jewish literature,
He's
comes
every
back
Brit.
to every Brit Milah to testify that he was wrong.
And that's why he says, Kano kineti la Hashem.
Very good. He says that I was zealous for Hashem. I was zealous for Hashem. And what happens? Immediately after he was zealous, Hashem says, okay, Eliyahu, now is your time to retire and make Elisha the prophet after you.
There's a real problem here.
And then Yonah steps forward. Yonah was zealous protecting the Jewish people. And it says Hashem spoke to Yonah a second time. The rabbis say from here you learn he did not speak to Yonah again a third time. He spoke to him a second time, and that was it. You have to be a person who cares about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Jewish people. There cannot be an imbalance between one or two. Yes?
The whole expression of emotion, of human emotion, on our scale,
Applies.
even if it's to a lot of people, is something we can see, categorize, even touch. When you're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's like an emotion that seems to be a much larger concept. Somebody saying, well, angry for Hashem, angry for the Jewish people, protect this. It's like a relationship.
We are attributing human
Yes.
emotions to a non-human being.
But it's a bit reductive in a way.
What is our other choice?
To have a perspective on the size of it and that it may mean
And
different
what
things. How does an infinite creator limit oneself to anger?
So definitely
I mean-
we don't believe Hashem is angry. We always use the word kivyachol, so to speak. It's the closest we can comprehend what is anger, what Hashem is feeling. Is what I would think of as anger, but it's not really anger.
And also, what's the result of our own actions as opposed to Hashem taking an action like set off a plague.
Right.
Did we set off the plague by violating his laws?
So this is what we began speaking about in the beginning of the class, which is the world is much more sophisticated than just what we see it. Was this the straw that broke the camel's back? Was my action what really caused the whole problem, or am I just that last drop in the bucket that made it overflow? What exactly is happening here?
Spark.
Right, this is a real, true understanding of the world, which is why the people who are being zealous are prophets. You can't be a person who's not really connected to the blueprints of the universe, and how do you know what's going on? Which is why we don't let people today speak the way prophets spoke. You can't reach the conclusions that if you don't do this, the Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed. How do you know? You're just a rabbi. You're not a prophet. That's why we struggle with these personalities, because they're not prophets. And therefore, perhaps from Pinchas you could see that Pinchas is we're answering the Orach Chaim HaKadosh's question. That it put two reasons on each side. He was zealous, but he wasn't zealous. He was zealous for the reason of protecting the Jewish people, and he was zealous for the reason of making sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's honor would stay intact. And because of this, when a person tries to take on this midah of zealotry, you have to make sure, what's your motivation? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get more likes on YouTube? Are you trying to get more members in your synagogue? Are you trying to make some money? Are you trying to make HaKadosh Baruch Hu proud? Are you trying to protect the Jewish people? Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev did some pretty extreme things to protect the Jewish people, so to speak, from Hashem. But nobody had any doubt in their mind that Rav Levi Yitzchak was trampling on HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to protect the Jewish people. Rav Levi Yitzchak cared about both of them. Sometimes the Jewish people took precedence. But you have people that everything the Jewish people do wrong, they have an excuse for it. They have a
To the contrary, I just read something so nice from I'm reading the introduction to the book that Rabbi Levi Yitzchak wrote, the Kedushat Levi. So he says something fascinating. He says, it's exactly an attempt to make sure that Hashem's kavod is never stepped on, that he always took care of the Jewish people. He says, why? He says, because we know it says that God wears tefillin. It says, what does it say on God's tefillin? It says, Mi kamchei Yisrael. Who's like the Jewish people? He said, by us making sure that that's true, when we look at the world and we see good in the Jewish people, we make sure that God's tefillin is always kosher. He said, when we start talking bad about the Jewish people and finding flaws, in essence, we're not just harming the Jewish people, but we're harming God, because we're saying he's wearing something that he himself wouldn't endorse. And that's the nice balance that he has, where it's not just advocating for one end, but he's really covering both perspectives.
And this is an important thing to have in mind in general. Whenever we speak about something, to make sure, what is my motivation? Is my motivation pure?
He's also talking, I mean, very basically, he's talking about the grandson of Aaron HaKohen. He's not talking about just every guy on the street. He's talking about a very particular, very sort of high-level person, the son of a Kohen Gadol. I mean, it's like what you would expect of Aaron HaKohen or Moshe or Pinchas. You wouldn't expect of everybody else.
Let me read. Because you just got us
Bro,
to our next topic.
that's it.
Let's read the rest of this paragraph.
Who's calling?
Who did he kill? Who did Pinchas kill? Oh, we didn't read that far yet. We don't know at this point who he killed.
Oh.
That was a trick question. והייתה לו זרוע אחריו ברית קריאת עולם, אוקיי? ושם איש ישראל המוכה, אשר הוכה את המדיינית, the name of the Jewish man who was killed,
What bro?
Zimri ben Salu. His name is Zimri. Nisi bet Av Shimoni. He was the prince of the tribe of Shimon. V'shem haisha hamuka hamidianit. What was her name? Kozbi Batsur, Rosh Umot Beit Av Midyanhu. It's very prestigious people. Very prestigious criminals.
Oh,
They
sorry.
weren't just anybody. It wasn't just some random person from the Jewish people. You have Pinchas, who's a big name, and Zimri, who's a big name, and Kozbi, who's also a big name. These people are it's a much bigger story than we originally thought. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh asked another question.
Bro.
Our parents loves the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Rabbi Chaim ben Adel. A lot of people love the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. My only critique is there are a lot of people who love the Orach Chaim HaKadosh who don't love the Orach Chaim HaKadosh children. And so, if they would love to love the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, it's okay. If they like Rabbi Chaim Ibn Attar, it's okay. But they should make sure they're also willing to marry people with the last name Ibn Attar, or take them into their schools with the name Ibn Attar, or make them
Right.
rabbis in their communities with a name like Ibn Attar. And my hint is already understood. So, says the Or Chaim HaKadosh, I don't know. Why now? Why now does the Torah identify who these people are? Why doesn't it tell you last year's parasha? Who were these people that he killed? It's like they were anonymous until now. What's so special? What happened now that Hashem feels to let us know? Or why did, another question, why did Hashem hide their identity in the first place? To understand this,
Israelite man. And
I have to
Midianite
read to you.
woman.
I need,
From my
Hine ha'adon baruch hu. I'm reading now from the Or Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar.
Torah.
Here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ha'adon, the master, blessed be he. Eino chafetz lezalzel afilu beresha'im. Hashem does not wish to degrade, to denigrate even the Resha'im, the evil people.
By mentioning their names.
Lefarsem, to tell you who they were, who was involved in these dvarim hametoavim. Umikoshesh yochiach. Remember the wood chopper? Who's the wood chopper?
Mommy, which song?
He's a man, he goes out on Shabbat, he chops
That's
wood.
right.
Oh.
We don't know who he is.
Song.
We have no idea who he is.
Where's the song?
Says Or Chaim, why do we know who he is?
Oh, where's
Because
the
the Baruch Hu
song?
didn't feel that it was important to
Where's
mention
the
his name.
song?
Why embarrass the person
Where's the
more than he's
song?
already embarrassed that he broke HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah?
Thousands of years later,
What's
people
on
still
this?
be saying his name.
What's
And he said
on
here, therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose that at the moment of their crime, he did not mention their name. It's not important to know who these people
this?
were.
I'm broken.
They're already criminals. They're already dead. They're already, now let them die. Why do you have to keep dragging their name through the mud? The only place where it mentions their name, where does it mention their name?
It looks like
When-
at first the Torah says this is what happened, and then it says, now let me explain to you what happened. You have this very high level guy Pinchas, and these two other leaders of the community, and they're flaunting Hashem in front of everybody.
Oh,
So let's
oh,
separate the
yeah.
parasha into two things. Last week's parasha and this week's parasha. Last week's parasha, there was a crime. It was committed, it was taken care of, over. We don't need to know his name, her name. This week's parasha is no longer talking about a crime. This week's parasha is talking about how great Pinchas was. How Pinchas is given a covenant of peace. He's kunad brit olam. He's given a covenant of being a priest for the rest of time. Do you want to know how special Pinchas was? Pinchas didn't go pick on someone lower than him. He didn't go pick on some poor person on the side of the road. Pinchas stood up against the leaders of his people, against the heads of the other tribes. Pinchas took a stance on things when they were important to take a stance on. When other people would say, it's the philanthropist's son, we should look the other way. It's the donor's nephew. It happens everywhere in the world. And he's saying, Pinchas, here, we're not talking anymore about their crimes. Now we're talking about how great Pinchas was. Hashem says, you want to know how great Pinchas was? Look at who he stood up against.
Torah.
This is the kind of person you want to be your leader. The person who's not afraid.
Torah.
He doesn't bow down to the wrong places. He doesn't. He doesn't. Lo taguru mipnei ish. He doesn't fall into the crime. The Torah says that a judge, a rabbi, a posek, is not allowed to be afraid of the people who he's judging. He has to tell the truth. He has to, and so it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, but that's his duty. And perhaps the last thing that is important to know about this parasha is when Pinchas kills, he does his act of zealotry. What happens at the end?
The plague stops.
The plague stops.
Yeah.
How many zealots do we know? There's zealots, and there's zealots, and there's zealots, and it doesn't actually do anything. Aside from hurt people, and distance people from Hashem, and make people upset at Hashem, and make people hate their Torah, it doesn't help anything. It didn't bring about the Geulah. If the guy was a zealot, and today Mashiach came, fine, I'm going to be quiet about it. But so far, their zealotry hasn't worked. And why would I let you... The only time we know Pinchas was successful, HaPel says, because his zealotry worked. HaPel says, if you see that their zealotry doesn't work, you have to realize that they're not doing something right. Something else needs to happen. And perhaps this is what my message is for today. We have to know when we are zealots. If we are zealots, it cannot be part of our natural inclination. It has to be something we're uncomfortable with. And if it's something we're uncomfortable with, we have to then say, so what's going to happen? What's the goal? Why am I doing this? For Hashem, for the people, for both. Okay, how am I going to do it? Ego, anger, viciousness. I'm going to come betocham, from inside of the Jewish people. I have to come with understanding that I'm one of them. I'm suffering from the same thing. And last but not least, it has to be a proven method. A method that actually works. And so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a blanket statement. The zealotry that the people have in our communities doesn't work. It has not brought back people to Torah. I have not seen one person in Bethlehem who told me, you know why I came back to Judaism? Because that guy in Jerusalem threw a rock in my windshield. Never in my life. I've never heard such a story. Never in my life. You know what I've heard before?
One here.
Do you know why I keep Shabbat? There was once somebody who invited me to their house for chicken soup and matzah balls, and I have not had matzah balls since my baby's house. That I've heard before. And sometimes I wonder, why are people holding on to the wrong kind of zealotry? Because in their bones, they're not. That's what they're cut out to do. We have to realize is the true zealotry. Go out and teach Torah. Go out and spread Torah. Invite people to your home. Let people see what Chanukah looks like, what Shabbat looks like, what Pesach feels like, what a Jewish wedding looks like. Let people experience our beautiful Yahadut. Why their only exposure that people have to Judaism is going to be such a negative thing? Zealotry and screaming and shouting and hell and Gehenom and eternity, Gilgulim, reincarnations. And what are the people? That's what they need to hear. People are not depressed enough in the streets. People are not committing suicide enough in the streets. We have to push more people to the brink of destruction. You want to be a true zealot? This is the message I learned from my Rebbe. Said, you want to be a true zealot? Go to San Diego. Teach Torah. Have a bet knesset on the second floor of an office building. You have a office, you teach. Incorporate into the things that you do the values of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Teach people, I'm good at what I do and my Judaism enhances my life. It's good for me. Let people know there's a beautiful side of Yahadut. Walk in the street. Don't be embarrassed to be Jewish. You walk around Jewish. Magen David, I wear a kippah. Whatever it is that looks Jewish on you. Do you know how many people you lit up their soul? They haven't seen a Jew in a really long time. You see them at the kosher section. And every time I'm buying something in Ralph's, the kosher section, I always meet some Jewish person that never in their life they haven't seen Jews. If people come over, someone kissed my beard once, all kinds of things. I don't even have a real beard. Like it's a little thing. But you inspire inside of people goodness. This is something that we have to learn. This is true zealotry. This is what's going to bring Hashem's children back. And this is what makes Hashem proud. The people who run around wagging their finger at Am Yisrael all day long, all night long, they just make Hashem upset because Hashem feels like my people are so bad. And they just make the Jewish people also feel like they're in the pit of destruction because the Jewish people feel like the world is coming to an end. The Jewish people feel like I don't have a chance, I don't stand a chance. B'ezrat Hashem, we can do a lot of good things by encouraging goodness. And so I'll end off with a story. This has nothing to do with kanot, but a story that shows you that sometimes good can go a lot farther than what negative things do. Our parents once had a couple that came to him and told him they were getting divorced. So they said, okay, you're getting divorced. They didn't want to hear about Shlom Bayit. They didn't want to hear about making up. They didn't want to hear about getting together again. I said, okay, so go to Beit Din, get a get, finish it. And what do they tell him? We want to sue each other for what we're worth. Our parents said, listen, you're a kollel guy. You sit in kollel. You don't have any money. She is the daughter of a kollel guy. What are you going to sue each other for? A sack of potatoes? What are you going to sue each other for? What do you own already? You don't own a house. You don't own a car. You don't have... What's with you? No, doesn't make it. We're going to go to court. And so they went to Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem court, where they deal with divorces and all such things. And they came in front of a judge. Our parents told me it was an old judge. I said, what does the difference make if it was an old judge? He said, older people are wiser than younger people. They're not as rash to make decisions. And he said this old judge looked at them, screaming at each other, cursing at each other, fighting with each other in front of the court. And the judge waited till they were done. He said, you guys are finished? Yes. He said, I'm sick and tired of seeing people like you coming here to fight. He said, little boy, little girl, go to the middle of the room and give each other a hug. This is court, they're fighting already years now, they're fighting divorce. He said, little boy, little girl, if you don't go to the middle of the room and give each other a hug, I will hold you in contempt of this court. What are they supposed to do? Now, religious people don't touch each other in public ever. What are they supposed to do? They went to the middle of the room, they gave each other a hug, and they burst out crying. They hadn't hugged each other in such a long time. They hadn't just been that close to each other. And the judge said, little boy, little girl, turn around, walk out of my courtroom. I never want to see you here as long as I'm alive. Go home. He sent them home. How did I hear the story? I walked out of Peretz to Yeshiva one day, and he told me the story. I said, that's a nice story. Why are you sharing it with me? He said, I just got back from the brit of their grandson.
Oh.
He was the sandak. Sometimes it takes a person who doesn't fight, a person who doesn't scream, who doesn't yell, who says, do it in a good way. And obviously that doesn't work for every couple. This judge had wisdom. He saw that what they were fighting about was external, not internal. And sometimes we have to know you'll conquer the world a lot better with love than you will with hatred, with fire, with brimstone. Only with love of Hashem. Bezrat Hashem.